And we're back, and you are with Villaincast, BJJ Antiheroes, with myself, Chris the Villain Paynes. Weekly podcast featuring either my fellow black belt, Naki Arshed, on our show Reap the Week, or compelling interviews with other personalities across Jiu-Jitsu. But before we jump into this next show, a thank you to our Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to receive these episodes one day early, along with exclusive video content and online coaching, you can find out more via chrispaynesbjj.com, or join our Discord channel to put your ideas through for future episode discussions. But for now, though, Charles Harriott. Hello, sir.
Hello.
I was hopeful then that you actually heard me, otherwise that would have been really funny.
And I just stare into space.
Yeah, like, is he done? Oh, great start. Yeah, so it's been... Actually, you were requested
Oh, really?
to appear on the podcast. Yeah,
Look at
and
that.
I've actually had questions through as well. People want to ask you things. So, for anyone who doesn't know who Charles is, and you have been on this show before, but it was 3 years ago when we were bored in the pandemic.
Was it really that long already? Shit. Wow.
Well, that's why I kind of restarted the podcast, is I realised that I was still paying for this. So it went out of my bank account, and I was like, "The fuck is that?" And so I thought, "Oh shit! Well, if I'm paying for the fucker, I may as well make the most of it." Exactly. And it was like, so in other words, because we hadn't done anything since 2000, I'd just been paying yearly for this service that hadn't had anything added to it. And I thought, you know what? Time to make a run at this. So if anyone who hasn't gone back 3 years,
because like it does not feel like it's been 3 years. I remember the last time we did this, I was like, "We'll do it again soon." I thought that was like 6 months ago. That's been 3 years.
dude, yeah. As soon as we could train again, I stopped giving a shit. Like I was like, "What the fuck am I talking about jiu-jitsu for? I'm gonna go roll." So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, or where you're from, or what you do, please, an introduction, sir.
Oh, an introduction of me. All right, my name is Charles Harriott. I'm a lifelong martial artist. Prior to my professional jiu-jitsu life, I graduated college with a degree in physics. Then I had a regular person job, taught myself a bunch of different skills, software development, etc. Stopped doing that, started traveling and doing jiu-jitsu. Started traveling a lot and doing jiu-jitsu. People started saying yes to actually hiring me to teach things rather than just rolling. And then I got sponsored by BJJ Globetrotters, got to teach at one of their camps. Then that kind of caused a bit of an explosion. Had a lucky break, got to meet Bernardo Faria and roll with some of his guys. Got the gig to make an instructional for BJJ fanatics way back when like that was kind of a hard thing to do. And then just kept on doing it, got a bit obsessed with various things, and now my life consists of this interesting combo of making instructionals, talking to people like you, Chris, tinkering with jiu-jitsu, and teaching seminars as I travel with my girlfriend, Natasha Koyazos, and then have half my life here in Gainesville, Florida. So I've competed in jiu-jitsu. I've not won anything anyone cares about, but I've won some nice low-level tournaments that no one cares about, some Nagas and new breeds, and just really been obsessed with the coaching side of things, and particularly like the retention that people have in what they learn in jiu-jitsu and how they approach it for the past 5 years, but even more so the past 3 years, just trying to find elegant ways to solve problems. And I met you, Chris, at my first Globetrotters in Heidelberg in 2018, and you kind of were my avenue into being frustrated with defensive postures, obsessed over that, and then that led to our collaborations and touring together, and ultimately the elbow frame, and then our Fanatics instructional together, and then continually, having these collaborations where you act as the person who says crazy things and makes over-the-top claims, and then I attempt to bring things back down into reality with applications. The nice complement of the theory and then grounding theory into application that I think that we bring, depending on the venue, who gets to be the crazy one and who gets to be the grounded reality one.
I'm not sure if either of us are grounded when we do those things.
It's all relative. It's all relative to the other person on that given day.
True. It's who can one up the other person with like dumb shit.
Exactly, and so then, but by default, the other becomes the sane one.
Usually, I always start as well. So when we've toured before, I'll usually be the opening act, followed by Charles's brilliant techniques. And I'll normally say some shit that he's just I can see him sitting on the sidelines, just like, fuck's sake.
Because I always know what you mean. There's always truth behind what you're saying, but you always just take what I would easily, for example, like a numerical scale. I would believe that the absolute truth of this statement would be like a 7. And you're like, nah, we're going 12. We're going to go 12 with this statement and just take it. And then I'm like, I can't say he's wrong, but I wouldn't quite have.
So I did a Q&A session in the recent Heidelberg camp for Globetrotters.
Yes.
And yeah, your face. I was scanning the crowd, feeding off reactions, seeing how many people were offended, and then I could just see your face in the corner. It's like, fuck sake, stop. Like, you were my gauge on like how far to take it.
I'm happy I could be the canary. I'm the canary in the coal mine for your jiu-jitsu performances. I'm here for it.
I loved it. I loved it so much. I remember we met. I was a brown belt, you were a black belt. At that 2018 Heidelberg camp.
Between you and Preet, you had me second guess my entire qualifications to be teaching at that camp the day before I had to teach. So thank you both.
But you made a really good point about Globetrotters, and so for anyone who still hasn't learned what Globetrotters is, it is the traveling circus of jiu-jitsu. It is exactly. I need to talk to you about, like, put a pin in that, because it's something where you essentially you're paid an exposure, and
yep,
it's the infamous artist thing, like pay for someone an exposure. But honest to God, I don't think any of us would be where we are if it wasn't for Globetrotters. Like, Preet would not be doing what he's doing. I would be nowhere near what I'm doing, and. Yeah, like, so you were traveling.
I mean, I was already traveling, but like it just made everything so much easier. Whereas before, I would literally have to do it, one gym at a time, being at that gym, talking to that gym, rolling with everybody, like kind of putting the sweat equity into like, oh, this guy's pretty good at jiu-jitsu, and this guy's not an asshole, and like that was my entire method. And like, whereas Globetrotters, like I get to share what I'm doing with 300 people at once over the course of. It's just, and on top of it, like, then I also get to pick the brains and cross-pollinate with all these other obsessed jiu-jitsu people. But like you said, it is what you make it, because you can take it, like I think Preet really is the example of taking it and squeezing every bit of juice you can out of the Globetrotters experience, or you can just take it and have fun with it, because there's other coaches that just use it as a nice little vacation, like they have no ambitions of trying to make Globetrotters into a platform for anything. They just enjoy rolling and learning and hanging out with friends. And it can be either one, depending on what you want it to be. Or both.
Well, I had, considering that that class that went viral, I had no intention of that ever happening. And then all of a sudden it was like, here you go. Like, you're going to get booked around the world. I'm like, motherfucker. Like, I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be a vacation, like you said. Like, it was, I think, my first time teaching as a black belt. And all of a sudden, I wouldn't be on Fanatics, I don't think, if it wasn't for that.
I think that made you feel more comfortable to reach out to Fanatics. I had been saying that you should for a long time, but I think that gave you the external validation that, like, what others had been telling you was true. I personally believe that your quality of what you were teaching was at the Fanatics level before. But I think that was kind of the wake-up call of like, oh, shit, apparently I'm pretty good at this.
It did help having all those comments saying, oh, really good. So, yeah, it was I literally owe my life and the lifestyle I get to lead to Globetrotters.
Oh yeah.
And it's good talking to someone else who is a recipient of such a fantastic organisation that Mr. Graugart has created. And I'm kind of jealous that I don't get to do any more this year. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to do it, but I guess. Yeah, I guess the Austria just finished. Yeah, the European season's kind of open. I have one more left this year. I love the Arizona camp. It's different than most of the other ones, but it's just Jay Page's gym is just like,
yeah,
it's just such a cool little spot.
I enjoyed mine 2 years ago.
As you walked the streets of America, like you just don't adopt to our cultural ways in America. In America, we drive places, and you just start walking in the desert like a damn vagabond.
Dude, I didn't realize those mountains are about 8 miles away.
Yeah.
So I just walked 8 miles into the desert.
Like that's how people die. Like and you just like la 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 la.
Oh, I got honked at, swore at, and when I came back and I spoke to you and Michael Courier, like, why were people honking at me? And you're like, what were you doing? I was like, oh, I was walking down the highway to the desert, and they're like, oh, they thought you were drunk or like a homeless person.
A homeless person. Oh, I thought you were a grifter or axe murderer or something. Like,
the thing is, I looked like I dressed relatively okay, so probably the axe murderer, kind of like I've woken up from a fugue state after murdering several people.
Yeah, you're like the guy from Breaking Bad. You're like one state over.
Yeah. It's one of the fun things that since we have met of touring, and we've done, what is it now, two decent sized tours.
Yeah.
We did the one pre-pandemic and post. No.
Well, I guess the full tours were 2, and then we had when I just brought you. Then you just toured in Florida, a little mini one that was just you in the beginning, and then the last one where we linked up. But that was more of just recording the instructional than like a proper tour.
That takes us to 4 then.
Yeah, four
Yeah.
collaborations. The middle 2, I think, are the more like tours. Like the road trip and the plane trips. Those are like full-on tours. And then the first was just kind of like, welcome to America, Mr. Paines. And then the last one was you kind of setting off on your own, like a free bird, touring on your own without your American guide.
The last one involved you high off your face staring at a lake. Like, I had no one to guide me.
What are you talking about? See, the thing is that the thing you guys don't realize is that I would do that exact same thing regardless. Like, not to mention you and Naki and like these damn, what was it, a chocolate or something? Like, I don't do this. Like, I generally am a sober human. Meanwhile, you two, like, professional psychonauts over here, like, I'm just not prepared. And you're like, just have a chocolate. And I'll be like, oh, okay. But I would do that. I would walk across that street and stare at that lake on a regular day. Like, that's something that I do. I love nature, and I love staring at water. And you guys are like, no, we will not cross the street.
It wasn't a street; it was a highway.
It's not a highway. Highways aren't one lane. It's just it's not a highways have more than one lane. It's one lane either way. It's
fast road.
Welcome to America.
So
fast
I think that's a perfect metaphor. Like I say, like the first time I came to the States, I'd never been across. I was young. I was naive. I was unaware of your customs, and I was scared. And then here we are at our last one. We've just recorded at Fanatics together.
And you want to walk again. What the trend is you walking on roads.
And now here you are. You've walked off. You've left me. You've gone, you don't need me anymore, Chris. And you just wandered into traffic.
Spread your wings and fly.
It's a beautiful metaphor.
I mean, it actually makes me really happy because, like, I remember when I first brought you over, like, it was partially because, like, let's bring my buddy over. But secondly, like, I saw the value of what you were doing. And I was just like, I can't believe that no one else seems to see this. And so, like, belts be damned. Like, he's just a brown belt. I don't give a damn. Like, he knows something I don't know. Which, to me, is something that I think is really important. And I think kind of becoming more of a thing these days as belts... not that they mean less, but it's not about being a black belt means knowing everything. It means I want knowledge. If this other person has knowledge I don't have, or an approach I don't have, or I want to get it from them. And I really don't really care who has validated their knowledge and said that they are this color belt or whatever. Like, if someone knows something I don't and they've proven it effective to me, I want to learn from them. You know, like it's as simple as that.
Just before I put some extra onto that, I just want to clarify. After the miserable little moment I gave you in Heidelberg, you say, I think you've rewritten history in your head. That I want to give this guy some platform in America. You then put a bounty on my head and told people to fuck me up for a coffee, and then people were hurting me. I have a black.
No one was hurting you.
I had a black eye after day one.
Hold on. Let me be clear. You made a statement, and the whole point of it was to promote the seminar, and I was like, I met this person who I can't tap out. And in general, of those people where I had trained, like, I tapped out most people. And so I was like, I wonder if any of these people can successfully do this to Chris. I didn't think that a $2 coffee would be something taken so seriously. It's not like I put a bounty out on you for $1,000 or even $5. I offered a coffee. Coffee is $2.
You put... It doesn't matter, like, how much the prize is worth. There was a prize. So, anyway.
Oh, I only did that in one gym. I did not do that in any of the gyms that had, like, the 80cc caliber athletes. I did it at a regular local gym in a small town.
You did it at Dan's place in Tampa.
I did not. There was no bounty on you in Tampa. The bounty was only in Gainesville. I did not. In Dan's place, I did not buy Dan a coffee. All right? So there was no bounty in Tampa. In Tampa, it was just, let's roll with my friend. But you, in your class you taught, had pretty much, in your usual fashion, like, cackled and laughed and been like, ha ha ha, you can't get me, this stuff works. So you kind of did the Tampa one to yourself.
Maybe. Maybe. But, to be fair...
The Gainesville one, I will take credit. In Gainesville, I did put a coffee bounty on your head that is accurate, and no one collected. And it proved the efficiency of what you were doing, and it got one more person to come to the class.
They smashed my face in. So
it came back.
Going back to your previous point, yes, I would say that about belts. Like meeting people through Globetrotters, because Christian doesn't really hire big competitive black belts, like athletes.
He has, but they don't last. Like,
not long.
The people that last are the teaching obsessed people.
Yeah.
Like, we have a couple high-level competitors that still come in and out. And not to say that some of the people that compete aren't highly skilled competitors, but I wouldn't say that they're your, like, ooh, this guy is considered a big name, so to speak, in terms of the current competition scene. Like, I would say, like, the probably most obsessed competitor is probably, Wim, right? Wim competes probably more than anyone else. Who do you think?
Yeah.
Or Freddie back when he used to come?
Yeah. So that's, the vast majority of the coaches who come aren't active, mainstream, big-name competitors. They're all people who can communicate their jiu-jitsu. And I think it really does, it reframes the whole conversation of what you want in a black belt. Do you want someone who's just going to be there for a good photo? Like, oh my God, I saw this person. Or do you want someone who is genuinely capable? Because at that point, there are plenty of purple belts and brown belts I've met at the camps who are like, this person's pretty fucking smart. I like what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, Sven Groten. Like, he wasn't a black belt until a couple of years ago. We've known him a lot longer than that.
Yep.
And
he had his little
smart
red
guy.
black belt, and that was kind of his like side door in, but he was not a jiu-jitsu black belt. You're right.
He was a purple belt for the longest time.
In jiu-jitsu, yeah. But I think that's also due to his own self-standards of not wanting to just get one of those, because there's, even in jiu-jitsu, you can get your black belt or you can get your black belt. I'm sure there are people who would have just rubber stamped him, but he didn't want that. And he kind of was very picky about who he chose as his black belt mentor and who would end up promoting him. And I kind of give him credit for that, because he very easily could have just found someone to rubber stamp him, just based on how well he rolled alone back then.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. But from a purely aesthetic point of view and superficial, you look and think, well, why would I learn off this purple belt? But no, goddamn, we've both stolen shit from Sven. And it really did open my eyes up. Like, from those initial camps where he had to take on those high-level names like Gianni Grippo, Keenan Cornelius, Clark Gracie. There was always a big name there, but I always got more out of the smaller European coaches that could, who'd take their time to like really sit with you and talk about their jiu-jitsu, and you could feel it, and they know what they were saying. Not to say those guys, can't teach. I'm not blanketing it, but I
wasn't at Globetrotters for that era. By the time I got to Globetrotters, I think there was like one or two people who have like trickled in that are names, but they've never been the center point of anything. They've just kind of like, they happen to be there versus it being like, because for example, like I taught at the Hodger Gracie camp last February, and it was very clearly, this is Hodger Gracie camp. Why is everyone coming? Well, because Hodger Gracie's going to be there. And everybody else who's not Hodger Gracie is Hodger Gracie and others. Like, it's very clear you're coming to Hodger Gracie camp to see Hodger Gracie. And to be fair, like, he's one of the exceptions in that he is actually a fantastic instructor and very detailed and very good at communicating what he does. But that's the exception. It's very, very rare that you find the amazing competitor who's also the amazing instructor. It's becoming, I think, more common in a couple of the teams. But in his history, that wasn't the case. I think the great examples really being the Danaher team tends to produce good instructors as well as the B team. A lot of their guys tend to also... Keenan's also... Actually, there's a guy from Legion who I've been following. I don't know his actual name because I remember Instagram names, who communicates beautifully. And like he really communicates a lot of stuff that I agree with. Just, I really enjoy his Instagram. I'll have to look it up and share with you. But like, you're right. The Legion guys are also quite, like sticky with how they're diving into how to communicate versus just do like me.
That was, I remember, so Keenan spent 3 or 4 hours at the 2014 Globetrotters camp explaining Wormguard, because it was just as Wormguard came out. And I think the year you were at Heidelberg, there was a high-level international caliber competitor, black belt, who condensed what Keenan took 4 hours to do into a single demonstration of a technique. And then was like, okay, you guys go do that now. And everyone was like, the fuck? Keenan spent 4 hours explaining what you just did once. And everyone just had the same look on their face of, huh? And he was like, oh, I'll show you again then. Well, thanks.
That's so funny, like that attitude of like, and I think it's not even something that I think people realize. I think it's that unfortunate thing that happens when you've been doing something so long and you're so good at it that it's so internalized for you. It's so effortless for you that you can't fathom why anyone else would need more than what you need to absorb it. Yeah. And like, 'cause I've experienced it as, someone who's pushing 20 years in this sport, to be at a seminar and like, I'm struggling to keep up. And I look around the room and it's mostly white and blue belts. And I'm like, if I'm struggling to keep up, like what chance do they have of actually learning this technique? And then I look at the coach and like, he's looking at the class with disdain, like, oh, if only I had better students. And I'm like, no. Not if only you had better students. Like, what you're teaching them could be learned by them if you were a better coach.
I'm kind of happy that I never stopped teaching beginners, like day one beginners. Like, no matter, I wasn't going to take an advanced class and let a blue belt or a purple belt run a beginner's course. I was like, no, I'm teaching everyone who ever walks in the room. And so I get repeated attempts at what's the most simple way I can explain this idea. And I'm quite fortunate as I set myself up that way. That means when I'm in a seminar, it's like I can meet you where you are.
Exactly.
I'm not expecting you to meet me where I am.
Which I think makes sense, right? Especially because you're in a one-to-many situation, or maybe a two-to-many situation if you have an assistant with you. Which is that, like, there's a small number of you and many of them. What's easier to change? You or them? Always way easier to change you. Way easier to change you than to just expect the entire room to rise to your expectations.
Yes. Speaking of Globetrotters, this is what I want to put a pin in. I just remembered it now. This is the first year I felt like a clown at the circus. In that, as in, previous years it was, I think it was just the amount of people and everyone was so hyped up at the camp. It was the first time I felt like being the entertainment. Is that, you saw me by, because previous years I was always like one of the, the people at the camp I paid to be there. And then, you saw the black belts unable to take off their own rash guards because they were that beaten up. But now being on that side of the fence, like the amount of people just queuing up to kick my head in. And then I remember when my back went and I was lying on the floor on that last day, and I'm practically in tears lying on the edge of the mat, and some white belt sees me, walks over, like leans over my head and goes, "Are you still good for a roll?" I'm like, "I'm dead." Like, if you want to just like start just doing like humping my corpse, be my guest. But right now you ain't gonna get much more than that.
Well, I think I had the exact same experience at this camp because I had my back and neck go due to like, and on the second day no less. That was what was so frustrating. I'm like, because I didn't like. It was one of those things. Like the thing that I learned at my very first Globetrotters camp from Christian was these two things: always warm up, and never roll harder than 80%. And I did that. And my injury rate went down from like once a month, like it was when I first started traveling, to like once a year. And I broke my own rule. I was late for open mat, and I didn't warm up, and I ran out, and I got a club from hell on my neck, felt the lightning go down my arm and leg, and I wasn't the same I'm still not the same. I'm still getting chiropractic adjustments right now because my neck is effed up. But I still rolled all day that day. Yeah. Like a stupid person. And I could feel that, like, from white to black, because I was a little off, the people who know me, it's like the sharks that smell blood in the water. They're like, wait a minute. He fell over.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's weak.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. They saw me injured and they thought, I'm going for that one. I was laughing with Francesco. So I had a dorm room with Francesco, Wim de Putter, and PJ Lucy, and I was laughing with Francesco. So I was like, I feel like a clown the first time at the circus. I was like, I don't think these people realize that, after the show's over, we go back to our hostel, and it looks like a head injury ward, as in you've got PJ lying in bed, just not moving. You've got Wim, like, quietly, like... No, actually, no, that's what made it funnier. Wim would wake up screaming. Is that at one point I get up in the morning and I'm like, I see PJ's awake and I'm like, yeah, good morning, dude. Wim jumps out of bed screaming like, what the fuck is happening? And like Francesco then shits his pants because Wim's screaming. I'm like, so you got PJ asleep. Wim's got PTSD. Like Francesco's just running his headphone cables through his hands, and I can barely roll over in bed because I'm broken. I'm like, you guys don't realize like how much that we get back to our hostel and we're just lying there waiting to get carted out again, like circus
that's the
animals.
hilarious thing. Like, as I think about it, like, as you're feeling because this is kind of how I've always felt at Globetrotter camps, but I've been pretty good because I warmed up and like refused to go over 80%. Like, most of the time I was able to keep myself healthy. But the night before I didn't warm up for the thing, I chose like an idiot. Because Wim and I, every time we roll, it's never short. Because neither of us wants to admit that we're tired. Neither of us wants to say we're done rolling. Like when we first rolled for the first time ever was in Estonia, Preet kicked us out of his gym. He literally turned the lights off in the gym and said, my secretary needs to cast the last train. Get out. But like the lights are off, we're still rolling, and Preet had to kick us out. That's how every roll I've ever had with Wim goes, because we're both constantly like chasing each other. And so I had a war with him the night before and was already halfway like this, and then I don't warm up that morning and an idiot.
I think Wim is the thing in common we have is that because I rolled with Wim and we'd had a half an hour roll at an open mat.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been the same day that then, because it wasn't any rolling that actually did me in. You know, I was having just black belts and brown belts just come for me. At one point,
those are actually, in my opinion, more safe and more fun than the giant purples and like I might be like purple and browns under 30. That to me is the danger zone.
Yeah,
the black belts usually aren't so bad.
I had a mountain of people. At one point, like I had a whole gym come to watch me fight their coach, and they were recording it and everything.
Oh,
and
yeah. I had that as well.
I made an example. I pinned him, stared dead-eyed down their camera as I slowly wrist locked him, not breaking eye contact. And
I love how you just embrace the psychotic stuff. I'm gonna turn off my phone. My mother is calling me. I'll have to let her know that I'm talking to her later as we go to airplane mode.
A podcast faux pas.
I know. The funny thing is, like I usually don't have any of these problems, but my mom, she loves me, and she's concerned about my health. I told her that I went to the chiropractor, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'll be all right." So, tell my mom that I have to call her back.
Even though I had a half an hour war with Wim of us just being perfectly positioned for half an hour on each other.
Yeah.
The thing that fucked up my back was making the Power Rangers Megazord with Natasha to fuck with you.
Wait, just that one piggyback ride is what. Do you have you should somehow load the picture into the show notes so people can see this photo. It's
I don't
really
think I have
hilarious.
the photo. I haven't got. You'll have to send me.
I will send you this photo. This will be done 100%. I will send you this photo.
And so it was because we were trying to fuck with you and make this big Power Rangers Megazord. That fucked up my back.
I'm not happy, but I'm not sad either.
So, yeah, karma came and got me. Actually leads me on to I actually have notes.
I'm gonna send you the photo real fast, or I will forget. I have almost found it. We're almost there. Oh no, I have to get it from Natasha. It's not showing up.
Okay. Well, again, these little notes I have, and one thing that I have talked about other people with this. You came up a few times in different conversations. Is I don't think you'd probably refer to it as karma, but how you do good things for people and just keep that going. You just not for your own benefit. You just do things and help people out. Like you didn't have to vouch for me that time in America. You just did, even though it was of no benefit to you.
I don't know. I just the truth. I don't know. I've always been a very big proponent of like there's no reason to not. Like I would never have vouched for you if you were not of merit and value. Like if you weren't worth it, I would have just been like, "Oh, nice to meet you," and you never would have heard from me again.
But as in, I understand that, but as in, you didn't do it for any of your own benefit. Like,
I had the benefit of getting to learn from you, like I guess I got that benefit.
It's not that good.
Because for whatever reason, like I always say, like Preet, I love Preet, and I've learned a lot from Preet's stuff. But for whatever reason, like for my learning style, the way you communicated at that point in time, you were communicating Preet's system. Now, obviously, you've gone far much beyond just communicating the defensive postures, and you have your own stuff and yada yada. But at that point in time, it was like you're doing a thing that I don't understand. Preet has explained what this thing is that I don't understand, and I'm trying and I'm failing. You explain it, and for whatever reason, due to my learning style, and I'm getting it. So we get along. You're younger. We had you wanted to roll with me, and I don't know. It was one of those things where that's kind of my view. So I kind of just do stuff that I think feels right. Because it's even the same thing right now. Like whenever someone impresses me and I feel like what this person is doing needs more attention, I try my best to help out with the powers that I have, no matter how small they are. Like in the first time, what did I bring you really? I brought you to Gainesville, Florida, a town with a population of 200,000 people, which is a lot when you compare it to the country of Iceland, but very small when you compare it to the United States and other big cities. But it was like, this is something that I find novel and unique, and let's see what I can do with it. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my motivation. It's just kind of like, I like that kind of shit. It makes me happy. Like I have intrinsically made happy if I can help someone who has put effort in, or someone who has done something I find exceptional to succeed. Like that makes me happy.
Well, it's one of the life lessons actually I've taken from you, and there are people that I've now helped as well, like any platform that I have available to me. Just an idea that if it helps you along on your way, like we're not here to put each other down. Like if you can just help someone along, even if it's of no benefit to yourself, if you have a ability to, and it was your bright nature made me a better person.
Oh, you're getting all sappy with me. I appreciate this.
So, well, no, I think it's worth saying.
The funny thing is, as you've chosen the villain as your moniker, as your logo, to be a bad guy, and you're talking so kindly about someone doing a kindness to you, like this are you sure this is on brand for your mystique?
Anyone who's listened to any episodes of this knows that it's all a facade. It's all. Hopefully, I'm not too much of an asshole. But no, you taught me that valuable life lesson, especially in jiu-jitsu, where us, under tier D-list coaches, like we need to help each other out, and
of course,
not anyone ever, like not even just jiu-jitsu. Like you're very much you're. I think Christian said it really well. I think on the documentary, you can't go around the world without coming back different.
Yeah, it definitely impacts you. Like I guess it's also like something that's come from. I've been the beneficiary of so much, like kindness of random strangers around the world, jiu-jitsu and otherwise. Like my first time in Japan, like a random Japanese equivalent of a soccer mom helped me find my train. Like walked like half a mile through the labyrinth of train stations to show me where I needed to go as I spoke my like freshman year college broken Japanese to her for no reason, no benefit. I will never see her again. I do not know her name. I have a random picture with her from like 2017 or 2016 that I have her, but that's it. And she gets nothing from that. Or even like the amount of times where like I've been lost in places and people have helped me out. The amount of people who chose not to rob me when I fell asleep on buses. I'm thankful to all of them. Like it sounds silly, but like my very first time traveling in 2005, like I fell asleep on a bus in Spain and some dude robbed me. He stole my camera. Like, because I was a bright-eyed little 18-year-old boy who looked innocent and like there'd be no consequences. Now I don't look quite as innocent, but just I could choose to like not trust anybody, or I can look at the weight of my life, and there's just so many people who have just chosen to be kind to me. It's just been kind of a cool ride.
I think
so I just pay it forward.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's you are a shining example of that idea of pay it forward, and you've made me a better person from your attitude, and hopefully anyone listening to this will see that it is possible to be a good person. And
yeah, you don't necessarily
pay it forward.
Well, actually, that was the most important view, like little statement, that kind of changed my mind, because there's that whole nice guys finish last thing that was always kind of the moniker of like, don't be too kind, don't do whatever, don't be a sucker. And someone reframed it for me once. It's like, nice guys don't finish last, boring guys finish last. Just don't be boring. Like it's not like you're not getting the girl or not getting the job or whatever you want because you're nice. You're not succeeding because you're boring. Just don't be boring. As long as you're interesting, you can be kind and still be successful. And like that little tweak has like, at least I don't know how old it was. I think that statement, that little, I think it was given me back in 2005 when I was first on study abroad, and someone told that to me, and it was paradigm shifting. And like, I would definitely still, for all I know, it would end up being one of those like like frustrated, like angry, like incel type dudes who's just like, I'm kind and no one likes.
Thing is, like, I was actually contemplating when you were saying it. Is like when it comes to this part of like the video, is uploading a picture of Ted Bundy and like saying that's a quote by him over your face.
Oh
like,
God!
Just like,
I'm gonna find out that like I have no idea who said nice guys don't finish last.
It's boring guys.
I know.
Just don't be boring.
It might be Hitler or something. I have no idea who said that. Like remember when Hensel Gracie quoted Hitler or Himmler by accident?
Yeah.
Like I don't know who said that. I should probably look up who I'm quoting.
And that's what I thought. Like you could put up a picture of Ted Bundy and say, and actually people believe, yeah, he probably did say that. Like, just don't be boring. Like that's how you get the girl. Like,
it worked out. I don't know. I have a girlfriend. She likes me. I was not boring when I met her, but I have been kind. I really do think that kindness gets a bad rep. It gets a rep that like you're a sucker for being kind. It's just you can be kind, just be interesting. This is if you learn nothing from today, this is message.
it could be the title of this podcast.
Yeah.
Don't just be kind, be interesting.
Yeah.
Perfect. So there's a question I do have. And it's about the elbow frame.
Okay.
Holy fuck! So, have you seen the video of Mr. John Jones and Mr. Gordon Ryan?
I have. I sent it to you. I saw. Dude, I was like,
you and so many other fuckers have sent me that video, and I'm like, I know. Yes, I know.
Well, it wasn't just the elbow frame. It was also the Sumigaeshi pommel and like the whole thing. Because that same guy I'm talking with Legion broke it down. I'm like, this is what I've been teaching. And the arguably greatest Nogi grappler of our generation, if not more, is doing the shit that I've been fucking yelling about. It made me so happy, and I have not exploited this. I should have an Instagram video being like, look, but I currently do not.
I know.
Money on the table that I'm slacking with my Instagram editing skills.
Dude, something for you to maybe fucking look at after we finish.
No, I think that's what I will do. I actually signed up. I paid an editor, so maybe I'll put him on that job because I was editing myself, but it needs to be consistent. And like when I'm on, I can edit, but like I get into these lulls where I just don't want to. But
yeah,
I should indeed do that because that for me. But I've been seeing it everywhere. There's also a high level wrestler. I follow her Instagram. Her name is Victoria, and she I can't pronounce her last name. It's probably not a real last name, but like she's a really good wrestler, and like she uses the elbow frame standing to do throws. Mm-hmm. She'll pommel out Russian 2-on-1s, put the elbow frame in the armpit, and throw people. So it's kind of like I can relate so much because when I first. When Pre first became a meme lord, remember that weird transition where like the quiet Estonian became a meme lord? No one saw that shit coming, but he started posting like the videos of common things and like showing his postures and like because I spent 3 years obsessing over effectively this, now I see it everywhere because my eyes are opened to seeing it, whereas before I wouldn't necessarily have noticed it, but it's freaking everywhere. And so it makes me so, and just like Preet said, like, it's not that I invented anything. It's just Gordon Ryan doesn't talk about that way. Like other people don't talk about this. Then again, I don't necessarily know that you need to make it the linchpin of your entire system like I have, but it certainly is useful. It certainly answers a lot of questions with a single move.
You say don't make it a linchpin of everything you do. Dude, I made it the linchpin of everything I do.
I mean, I have, but I don't think that you have to. I think that it's useful, and I'm using it that way. And I think the idea of framing as the linchpin of what you do to save on explosive energy is useful. But I'm not so arrogant as to believe that this is the only gem to be done.
No.
You know, I'm sure that there's other ones that might be just as good that you can complement it with.
The holistic idea of get the fuck up. That is what really changed everything. And Preet did call me a dictator for demanding that no one in the gym plays guard anymore.
But I've always said this about your gym. Like your tyrannical attitude in your gym produces something very unique that I don't see in all my travels virtually anywhere, which is uniform adoption of particular skills. The very first time I came to your gym, the fact that an entire gym of mostly white and blue belts all required effort for me to submit. Because they're white and blue belts. Obviously, eventually I'll wear them down. But the fact that like most white and blue belts will just do dumb shit and walk into submissions. Um, but the fact that like every single one of them, when I first visited, were properly using the postures as you prescribed to an effect, and I had to trick them. I had to layer combos and lay traps for them in a way that I usually wouldn't need to white and blue belts. And my statement then holds true today because I recently visited your gym is that like they're all brown and black belts of defense and their appropriate skill level on offense. I think the same thing now. You've just shifted your focus from the defensive postures into hip heisting, and that hip heisting, because what I found fascinating about kind of where you took the elbow frame and standing up idea and ran with it is that you took it kind of in a way to kind of be the red team against my elbow frame, against all the sweeping. Because you're right, if the top guy keeps hip heisting, suddenly getting up is also much more challenging. And so you can use it on both ends versus simply as the person on bottom. But I kind of enjoyed that when I came to visit, and even the way that you taught your portion of it, kind of preempting everything versus waiting to be in a bad position and having to rise.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It was objectivity. I think you made a really good point when we were doing the tour last year, of because I got to listen to this repeatedly night after night on the seminars, of there's certain things that you do in jiu-jitsu, especially as someone who's passing, that only exist when the other person lays down for you. But the second that you have the other person on the floor try and stand up, your passing isn't real. And that objectivity of going, right, then I can't have... If you give people a choice, they'll be lazy. If you just say to people... Because in the gym, there's no fail state for being on the floor compared to other situations.
Yeah.
And so I had to be like, no, actually, there is a fail state. I'm going to fucking hurt you. I'm gonna pull out a fucking stick and I'll hit you if you stay on the floor.
I love that we're simultaneously moving into the future while also moving into the past with corporal punishment for mistakes. Like, you are simultaneously progressive and traditional. I'm impressed.
We were joking on the podcast last night, Naki and I were saying that because my nickname in the gym is Chris Jong-un, because of how much I'm a dictator of a socialist republic of people who... because I don't believe in belts anymore. I think that we're all there for the greater good of the state. And
you always take these things so far.
But we ended up
all there for the greater good of the state. Oh my gosh. For dear leader, of course.
Yes.
For dear leader, Chris Baines.
And last night we came up with Fidel Cristro. I was like, I'm so happy. Like, this is all. I've got a whole new T-shirt range I can make.
Oh gosh. And you even have a graphic designer at your disposal. Morgan will have a field day with these ideas.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna have to send him these things. But it was
to touch on the belt thing real fast, because I've been thinking about that a lot, because my least favorite part of jiu-jitsu is evaluations, is judgment, is decree. But at the same time, one of my favorite parts is this idea of rite of passage. I like the idea of when it's a slam dunk, when it's so clear, right? When you meet someone, you're like, oh, yes, of course, this is a blue belt, purple belt, etc. And the idea that, like, what the stratification of belts has done that is a positive thing is that it allows for... the smaller leagues. Granted, there's the sandbagging problem and this or that, but the idea that even if you get started late, you can be a beginner at your age group and at your belt group, and make your way up, and having these kind of B, C, and D leagues that this is what like white, blue, purple, brown are to the Premier League. I think it has a value, and then outside of competition, it has a value of just recognition from someone you respect. Because that's all a belt is. It's recognition from someone, ideally, from someone you respect, saying, hey, you're on the right path. You've taken a step towards what my view as your coach is of whatever they mean for each of the belts, right? Brandon McCaffrey has a cool way of describing what the belts mean, and so do the Gracies, and everyone has their thing for the belts. But I do think that idea of being recognized, of completing the task of acquiring a a challenging skill, there's something there. There's a value in that.
This is what Naki and I were talking about, because we're finding it very difficult to consider promotions in the gym now, just because I think when we started mixing in a lot of this standing up and power dominance and various other ideas for training, is that power and weight and age play a massive part. And I think one of the toxic parts of belts is, in a sport that revolves around power, we have weight divisions, we have age, we have gender, we have all those things for competition. But in a gym, it's an absolute division, and you're always trying to climb the league table. And if someone below you on the league table, belt-wise, but is also just a monster, a powerful machine who's bigger than you, like, they're going to smash you because they want to climb you on the league table, and you don't want to get smashed by them because you think, well, I'm above you. It's a hierarchy. And especially with a lot more this slamming going on, we had to enforce a communist regime.
Or you could by slam. You can do wrestling without allowing freaking power bombs.
But to make sure like people respected each other enough that they weren't always trying to one up each other on a league table. It was like, no, we do the right thing by everyone, for the greater good of everyone. Like, you're not here for your own benefit.
Okay. And your view is that the belts undermine your egalitarian desires.
Yes. Like, they're good, perfect for competition, but in the gym, we don't wear them, we don't care. Because we're all here for the benefit of the gym.
This is what you always do. You always make a statement that sounds fucking nuts, and then when I dig into it, I'm like, okay, it's actually quite measured and reasonable. The idea of simply not wearing you're like 10th Planet's the same way. Yeah, they never wear their rank.
Not wearing them, but we don't care. Even like, if you're against someone in the gym, you don't look at them and think, oh, well, they're a blue belt. It's like, no, we're all the same level. We only have different belts that we need to compete.
Yeah, the belts are for competition, but also I think that there's the recognition of skills and understanding. Because especially, in my opinion, once you pass purple belt, I think that, in my opinion, it's obviously getting blurred as the skill set in Jiu-Jitsu is getting more and more diverse. But even back in the day, a monster purple belt can scare black belts and should be able to tap black belts. It should be able to. That, at least for me, that was always one of my measures of a purple belt. Like, if you can't scare me, even for a moment, like if you're in the best part of your game and you can't make me even worried, you're not a purple belt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think purple, brown, and black can be almost negligible difference sometimes. Like, a good purple belt should be able to, with their sharp tool, stab a black belt.
Yeah, so like if I'm a black belt, I am a black belt, but like if I'm going against the purple belt, they should have a game. It could be their guillotine, their ankle lock, their armbar, whatever, where if I put my hand in the Venus flytrap, they should be able to catch me. And at least make me try like a motherfucker to escape. They might not catch me, but they should make me, like, give me some heart palpitations. They should at least, give me some worries. But beyond that, I think it then shifts into the realm that we obsess over, which is, what can you do for the club? Can you take care of everybody else? Can you convey information? Can you keep everybody else safe? Or you, like, I think it immediately after purple belt shifts into not your acquisition of skill, but your ability to communicate skill and do other things for the club, in my personal opinion.
But I think that should be across the board, as in it should be a case of no matter who you are, it's a rising tide and you raise everyone up.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also think that in the beginning, I mean, granted, like, I guess it shifts because you're giving such a rich amount of defense early that the idea that the beginner, in my opinion, oftentimes the beginner is just trying to acclimate just figure out what the hell,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are we even doing here? And to expect them to be modulating how they're rolling. I mean, they can modulate how they're rolling, but like to be worrying about everyone else in the club, I think that's too much to
Oh no, no,
expect of a
That's-
beginner.
no. But looking from the beginner's perspective, is they're trying to prove themselves, and that's where you have like like a big guy.
Oh yeah,
going
yeah,
against
yeah.
Like a big guy, a big new beginner versus a small blue belt is a problem because the small blue belt is looking at that white belt thinking, I don't want a white belt to tap me, but they're twice my size, and that giant white belt is looking at that blue belt going, I can fuck him up, and
I've seen it so many times. Like my favorite example of this, and I'm not gonna name the names, but my friend, I love you. This story is about you. It is, but I'm not gonna name you. He's a white belt. He's a skilled white belt. I don't know if he's still a white belt now, but and he was going against a like 100-pound female purple or brown belt at the time, and his view was, even though I weigh double them, they should be able to roll with me. They're an expert. I'm a beginner. And I'm like, yes, but neon neck or neon temple, probably not the move to be using on a 100-pound woman, regardless of the color of belt they have around their waist. And that was, I had a long conversation with them, and they couldn't figure out why that woman's husband chose to beat the living crap out of them the round after they did neon temple on their 100-pound wife, because it's jiu-jitsu. They're higher skilled. They should be able to. And I was tried so desperately to explain to them, and I don't know if it ever got through. This is a conversation I had years ago. This is an old incident, but it really typifies exactly what you're talking about. When we begin trying to, and there's so many gyms where they do have their monstrously good, usually female lightweight, who can submit many larger men, especially beginner men. But as that larger person gains more skill, it's gonna become harder and harder. And for you to keep up that expectation of being Superman or Superwoman, even though you're the small person, like it gets hard and it gets dangerous.
I think so. It was the Rob Bianacki podcast that I did with him on here. He said it really well. It's really stuck in like my fucking head. Is for most people, their main competition is their own gym, and so that made me realize that is toxic, because every night you could be fighting for your fucking life instead of
Trying to get better,
improve for the team, and like trusting that if we all rise together, it will make us all better. And so that was the kind of like crux moment that made me think, holy shit, I need to change that atmosphere, because you're going to have smaller, maybe blue belts trying to get up versus a bigger, lesser skilled but very hungry white belt who's then just going to slam them to prove a point. And you keep doing that day in, day out, and people are like, fuck that, I don't want to go in. Because the amount of messages I get of other people from other gyms saying, I'm a small purple belt, but the giant blue belts are kicking my ass, and they I'm getting hurt a lot. What do you recommend? I'm like, fucking move. Like, that shouldn't be the case. Like, I love the fact that we go to competitions as a team, and where I'm going to support the team, but then get back to the gym. Fuck you all. Like, I'm staying here on the league table.
But here's the interesting thing, that like part of the thing that I love about jiu-jitsu is that you should be able to lose without injury. So like that big white belt, maybe in my opinion, the tiny blue belt just shouldn't roll with the big white belt. I think that you shouldn't be rolling with a giant spazzy white belt unless the gap in skill between you and them is big enough to compensate for the size discrepancy. So if that big white belt has gained enough skill that your skill gap is no longer big enough to compensate for size, and you don't trust them because they are a beginner and beginners don't have control, you should just not roll with them. But I do think also that being able to just be defeated by that larger person, not be injured by them, but just lose, is valuable for the kind of like, almost like I forgot what would I call it even, like evolution of the gym, like that kind of like Darwinism. Like I think that the technical Darwinism of the gym is a valuable thing. But I think you're mainly talking about, like, when you say being smashed, you mean being injured, not just being defeated or being tapped.
It can be a bit of both. The analogy that I give, which I did say at the Heidelberg camp, is like I have a 9-year-old son, and if I wanted to improve his ability to play soccer in goal, I have a choice. I can blast the ball through his little body and kill him. I can trick shot it over his head. Fuck him, he can't save it because he's short. Or I can kick the ball off the field. Fuck him, I don't want to play, I'm better than him. Or I can kick the ball at a level that he may or may not save it, but I'm doing it at a level that makes it okay for him. And in every exchange in the gym, there's always an adult and a child. Ignoring the belts, there's a power difference either in skill or generation. And it is up to the highest power generating person to play to the level of the lower one to improve them.
Yeah. I would agree with that, yes.
But the second you start getting a little bit of belt in there, like, ooh, I'm a higher belt, fuck them. Like, or I'm a lower belt, but I'm bigger, fuck them. And then you have people that, we're quite powerful guys, and so I don't think we've maybe felt it as fucking flexing your chest.
I have a hurt neck. I'm not flexing. I'm doing my exercises prescribed by my chiropractor.
I'm just gonna sit there doing that the entire time.
Which way is the beach?
That way. But that, I think, especially because of again, having so many beginners come through the door over the years, like hearing that of like, well, I just get smashed up by this guy because he's trying to prove a point, and I'm like, yeah, well, I need to figure out a best way of explaining that no, like, we're rising tide. If we want to operate as a team and get better as a team, you need to stop hurting each other, and this is probably the safest way of explaining it.
Okay, I'm with you on that. I guess the approach that I've taken to solve the same problem, not going down the like, well, abolish the rankings, because rankings aside, I still see death matches happening amongst peers of size and skill. I think it's that notion of learning how to roll. In my opinion, the way I break it down is there's 3 ways to roll. If you're the larger or more skilled person, I can roll for you, which is what you're describing, which is like effectively like holding mitts for someone. I'm giving you looks. I'm trying to figure out. Let me finish. And I want you to. I'm rolling just slightly above where you are, so that you can get your looks, maybe even at your level or lower than your level, so that you get looks. I can roll for us, which is I think what you're describing, which is bringing my effort down, such that my output of skill and physicality matches as closely with yours as can, and we can have a competitive roll. And then finally, there's competition training, which is rolling for me. And I think that all 3 of them have their place within the gym. I think the thing that we miss out on in most cases in Jiu-Jitsu is having a clear communication as to which of those 3 we're actually doing at any given time. There's the meme that is often laughed at, but I think it harkens to like a real problem in the culture of most gyms in Jiu-Jitsu, which is, hey, let's roll light, followed by murder.
Yeah.
I think that's the big problem, that like there should be the same way that most gyms have there's a sacredness to the tap. Like all moves aside, whatever, if you rip something after someone's tapped, you're kind of universally a scumbag. Like
Yeah.
there's very like it's kind of like there's very, very few exceptions as to when ignoring a tap could possibly be justified within the context of a training environment in a gym. But we don't have that around upping the intensity without consent.
Yeah.
There's no taboo around that. It's a big joke. The idea of rolling light is a big joke. And I think that's a problem. So teaching people how to roll technically or roll in a way that mitigates the big size difference. Oh, yes, this lighter person tapped you out. Yes, you could have picked them up like the Incredible Hulk. But is there value in that? Like I roll often with Natasha. Is there value in me just going, I'm bigger than you, Hulksman? No, there's not. So like, I could try to break Natasha's teeth as my rear naked choke every single time, or I could try to actually get through her defenses, and then I get a great roll with her. So I think that lesson is what I've been trying to teach for a long time, and it's challenging. And so I'm happy that you found that removing the rankings has helped. I don't know. I think there is a value to them, but I guess not thinking about them when you're rolling, but like there is a value to giving
Those,
that accolade, you know?
there is, especially if like I think if you're competing, it helps obviously fight to a high level. I think eventually I would give belts out, mate. In that kind of, if you're going to compete, this is what you should be at kind of reason. But it means nothing in here. Like especially like lining people up and like there's a hierarchy of how you line up and that I think that's fucking mental. But what I think is interesting is I stopped caring about my belt once I got the black belt because I'm like
You have the privilege.
and I think
You have
that's
black belt privilege, just
but
like
that,
I do.
I think it's very easy for us to not care if we have blue belts one on us because like well it doesn't diminish the fact I'm a black belt. But if you're still trying to prove yourself to climb, there's nothing for us to still climb.
I don't know. It's not about this decline. I think that there's a lot of black belts who have a problem being tapped by a color belt. A very large number of them. I remember being a brown belt. I didn't even tap this guy. I passed a black belt's guard. And he tried to injure me. He tried to break my arm as revenge just for passing his guard. And I thought he was going to fight me in the parking lot. Just because to him, the way that I passed his guard was embarrassing. And I brought shame upon him. And he wanted to injure me. I've been to other gyms where, like, a beginner... That's a puppy. Sorry, there's a puppy upstairs. It's not my puppy.
Thank God.
There's no one dying in the
I was
house.
freaking out then.
Hold on a second. We might have to. I don't know why they just decided to start crying. That might actually ruin this. I don't know if I can stop that.
That's I haven't got elevator music that I can just put on whilst you go.
I mean, I guess we can just pause it for a second, but there's nothing I can really do. Hold on a second. Let's just we have to pause it for a second. There's also someone getting home. This is a complicated situation. 1 second.
Welcome to Villaincast with just me. So if you're just tuning in,
that's what's going on. I'm actually in the middle of a podcast. And Chris was like,
I said I could mute Charles's microphone because you can hear everything he's saying. I can. There we go. So okay, well, no one can hear Charles right now. He's had some issues. I'm just gonna unmute Charles. He has returned.
Tasha's sibling is over, and they got home, and their dog could sense it, and that's why they freaked out. So now that they are home, we have quiet.
I muted your microphone, so half of that was missing.
So you have to just keep listening to that.
Yeah, I was putting some brief commentary in as you wandered off.
No. I am happy. It worked out really well because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I'm happy that there was a reason behind it because they got home and now they went up and they're taking care of their puppy and we're all good.
Perfect.
So what I was saying was about belts. Oh, no, actually, no. So I think there's a lot of little things that there's a value there. Like for example, to me as a beginner, when I got to a gym, like the belts let me know kind of like who I could trust in a minute, and that it's not even necessarily true, but like at least when I first started, it was like, don't roll with the other black belts. The other white belts are just going to be spazzy and they're going to injure you. Roll with blue and purple belts, and they're going to take care of you. That was what I was told when I first started training in the gi. Or as a coach, if you walk in, and especially in larger gyms, and I see a room full of white, a room full of blue, I'm going to modulate my lesson to a certain degree. But if I see all purple, brown, and black belts, I know that I can teach a more advanced class. I think that those little things are of value. Now, can you achieve those same things without it? Of course you can. Of course you can find ways. I mean, the no-gi only schools have been successfully doing it for years, and you're going, I think, even beyond those schools now with your, like, belts don't mean anything thing. And I guess, like, if we step outside of the traditional martial arts, like virtually every other combat sport kind of does it, but also kind of don't, right? Like wrestling doesn't have belts, but there is seniority on a wrestling team,
Yeah, I understand.
And that seniority has something like, and it's all based upon competition accolades, like if you think sumo has even more of that. Like, I'm thinking of other combat sports. Muay Thai doesn't have belts. I mean, I guess I guess I'm seeing that they kind of have belts now in
Yeah,
America.
but more for competition again.
Yeah, but it's your seniority of accolades of
Yeah,
competing.
but again, it's like I don't like the idea of your seniority then dictating who can play with who. As in,
I agree with that.
When I was to train Muay Thai, it was a case of, even if someone was like a goddamn British champion, it's like, no, they'll still hold the pads for you, like
Yeah.
and they'll still go to your. They're not just going to look at you and go, "Fuck you, you get to have CTE today," and then just whop me in the head. They're like, no.
I think that is due to the fact that in the striking arts you have to, because in those arts, in boxing gyms and Muay Thai gyms, if you don't, they'll often just get rid of you, and they'll get rid of you often in a less than pleasant fashion. Like if you're a giant beginner trying to beat the crap out of the smaller intermediates in a striking gym, their version of the mat enforcer might just knock you unconscious, and you're not welcome back at this gym. Like it happens in boxing gyms across America all the time. I know England has reputations for doing the same in their boxing gyms, of like having their gym wars. And if a guy off the street or a beginner comes and gets a little too rowdy, especially with a lighter weight boxer, they're gonna just take care of it. But like that old way, I don't think is the only way. But I also do agree with you that watching in the more traditional settings where like some innocent, purple or blue belt just wants to roll with the visiting instructor. Hey, would you like to roll? How dare you ask me for a roll? Like, it's just so pretentious. Now, being injured right now, I also understand, and like you also talking about everyone lining up to try and murder us at the camp, like that for our own health, like we should occasionally say no. But because of our, at least for me, you can call it pride or you can just call it like my own thoughts on what I've been training all these years for. I've been training all these years to be able to spar with everybody when I'm healthy. So I'm going to say yes. But because the neck injury got bad enough, I had to start saying no and being like, sorry, like my neck is violently injured and I have to not roll with you today. And like that hurt my soul, but I had to do it because I felt it. I'm like, if I keep doing this, like I'm just not going to be able to walk properly. I mean, I'm going to really damage myself if I keep just rolling on this injury for the entire week.
And yeah, and then it comes around full circle. Pretty much exactly what I've been saying, as in, that kind of situation there, you could be against someone who's a blue belt or whatever. Even though you're injured, they look at it and go, but I could tap a black belt today.
Yeah.
Like, and you think,
put your head on their wall, man.
Yeah, it's not for the good of anyone. I'm an injured human being. Why the fuck are we doing this? Just because I've got a different belt color.
Which is fascinating. It's actually something that I learned off of Craig Jones. I went to the, I haven't applied it because I'm stubborn, but like, I went to his leg locker camp in Belgium with him and Lachlan. Fabulous camp. I really enjoyed the whole thing. But his answer to it was he just refuses to have hard rolls with people he doesn't know.
Mm.
And so, like, if he's at the camp and, like, someone starts turning it up with him, he just starts going, eh. It just lets them tap him 15 times. Because when they come home, they tell a story. Yeah, I tapped Craig once. Yeah, they're going to believe that. Yeah, I tapped Craig Jones 15 times.
That's clever. I like that.
And so he kind of just takes the weight out of the entire thing, and it's fascinating. But at the same time, like when I got to roll with him, it was frustrating because I think that's the thing that kind of happens. Like because I found myself like the shoe on the other foot because like I'm often the coach, but now here I wanted to use it as a chance to kind of like measuring stick myself. Like I've been training hard. I don't really compete very often. Like I'm not trying to have an 80cc roll, but I wanted to see how all the things I've been practicing measured up against someone of his caliber. And he was just fucking about the entire time. Like, he refused to make the roll a serious roll, and I was like, I get it. And I wasn't going to be the asshole to, like, pick it up with him beyond that level, so our roll ended up being quite goofy and silly, and, like, not much happened. Rolling with Lachlan, on the other hand, he gave me a regular gym roll, where, like, we both got to roll pretty hard, and it's something about rolling with certain people that, like, I can memorize the entire roll, and, like, I built an entire seminar off of what I took away from a 5-minute roll with Lachlan. And I still teach it. Natasha and I call it the infinite loop. We obsessed over the way leg locks interplay with bolos and like all of that from just feeling how the way I was defending with my frames and the way he was attacking and counterattacking, how it all fit together against someone of such a caliber was very valuable to me. At the end of the roll, no one was injured. No one snapped anything. Like, we were both completely healthy, but we rolled at a pretty good clip for 5 minutes. And like, to me, that's perfect training, is being able to roll up to a level that is serious, but no one is getting hurt. No one is getting those unnecessary damage. And at the end of the day, like, to me, it's really valuable. And I'm very thankful that I was able to have that experience. And so I guess because of that, I'm still occasionally going to these seminars where I'm the student. It kind of keeps me grounded into like what it's like on the other side. Because it's easy when you're always being the coach to forget the feelings of someone who's just excited to be there. They're just excited to get to roll with you. I also had the fun fact at that camp of being like the consolation prize. So like if Craig and Lachlan were busy rolling, then there was like me and Alexander Neufong and a few other people where like the people who knew us would be like, oh, I guess I'll go try and kill one of them instead. And so I got to be the consolation prize. And I had the same thing you're talking about with people trying to kill me at that camp, and I wasn't even a coach.
Yeah. Speaking of Mr. Neufang, he is one of the other people who have been requested to appear as a guest on this podcast. But
I think that will be fabulous. In my opinion, bar none, he is the most creative person in Jiu-Jitsu. Like, I have not met anyone as... Now, mind you, being able to get that distilled madness and creativity of Jiu-Jitsu from his mad scientist head into your head, for me, has proved challenging at times. But when you can, like, there's certain classes that he's refined down, it's fucking beautiful. Like, there's things that he does that just no one else does. And for the longest time, he was dismissed by other people. That's just Neufang doing his craziness. It only works for him. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible that he could be so effective.
Yeah.
Without him being onto something. And when you talk jiu-jitsu with him, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of concepts. He's not necessarily able to fully articulate all of it perfectly yet. But like, you can just tell there's fucking gold under there. And so we got to teach a camp together in Enschede at Apex Jiu-Jitsu in Netherlands a few months ago. And we got to trade. I taught some elbow frame stuff. He taught some of his madness in both gi and no gi. And I took away a lot of little things from him that I'm still using. And my most proud moment of the use of the elbow frame was Neufang in Iceland did 254 5-minute rounds in 1 week and was not tapped even once, even rolling with the other instructors of the camp.
Good God.
He told me that apparently at around roll 180, he started getting tired. And his body just couldn't do his usual madness anymore. And he started using the elbow frame. And he told me about it, and he's just like, yeah, like, I can do all of this without getting tired. So now when nothing else works and my body's broken down, he could still make the elbow frame work. And to me, like, for a peer of mine, not a beginner, not somebody else because we taught alongside each other the same way that you and I do, for a peer of mine to take that information and actually use it in a role and then come and give me feedback was so great and reassuring to me, because of the fact that, like, thus far it had really just been me. I know you took it and ran, and your students took it and ran, but Neufang was the first person who, I guess, just kind of was like, put it to that kind of test. And I guess so from roll 180 to roll 254, he was using the elbow frame and was still able to keep attacking and be in those matches and like have that kind of effective thing. So to me, that was another like great kind of like milestone that, like, because you're heavily in defensive jiu-jitsu. Like, we kind of, this idea, when I look back to like when you first told me the idea of the sitting up out of running man, like, that's effectively what I'm doing with the elbow frame. I completely ignored it when you told me that, like, back in 2018. I'm like, I was just focused on the other one, and I never fully got good at the running man. But your concept, I remember when you gave me the coins to hide the coins on my hips. That was my favorite drill. and I moved around and I got that idea. It stuck with me, and then to come full circle and now to be bringing it back was really powerful. But like, I'm curious to see where else this goes and how far we can take it and spread it. And I'm ready, once again, thanks to one of your students when I visited you, expanding it, and I have a whole new section of elbow framing with chest facing, not just chest away, that I've been working on.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, and it was all because of your, I don't know if he was one of your students or the guy who did Aikido, who gave a really tight side control. I could not make my elbow frame on the near side.
Yes.
But because he over exaggerated the top side, he gave me access on the bottom side. To the regular knee elbow escape, shifted my elbow out, and now I'm elbow framing on the other side. That has blown up the number of places I can now elbow frame from. Because now I don't have to have you behind me. I can do it when you're in front of me as well. And so now it's really like just everywhere.
I'll let him know. I'll let him know that. I'll tell him to listen to this podcast and be...
Yeah, he's 100%. I forgot his name, but he was a really nice guy, and he was apologizing. He's like, did I... No, I was like, no, I want you to do that. You pinned me. I could not do the thing I was teaching the class. So I have to honestly evaluate what I'm teaching and be like, how would I solve this problem? And due to him, I had to level up the quality of what it is that I teach. Had he done the thing that like a passive student would do and just let me escape because I'm the coach, that discovery would never have been made.
Was it the stocky guy, the South African, or the... Yeah, there we go.
He was stocky. I don't know if he's from South Africa, but he was a stocky guy.
Long hair, short hair?
Longish.
Okay.
I think longish. He was wearing a black gi, and he said he did Aikido. Only, I don't think both of them did Aikido.
I know who you're on about. Yeah, I'll let him know.
Does he have long hair or short hair? Am I wrong?
Short hair.
It's short.
There's a couple of them. There's a couple of Aikido guys, but I know which one.
Compared to me, it's long.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone listens to this on Spotify, Charles has had a pretty sharp haircut. Oh, fuck all.
Rach, Natasha just shaved my head today. She set me up. So if you're not watching the video, you're missing out on my freshly done in the bathroom upstairs haircut.
Like, Charles has even got the lights off in his room. It's just the light bouncing off his laptop's lighting up the room off his head. Sorry, dude.
I'm hoping. Well, I'm going to go... I still have some hair, but when I go all the way, I'm going full Steve Harvey shiny head. Like, whenever I lose my hair all the way, I'm going to wax this thing. I'm going to go full shiny head. My head's decent shape.
The full Harvey.
Oh, yeah. The full Steve Harvey shiny head's coming. I don't know how many years I got left of this current buzz cut, but when it goes, we're going full shiny head.
Are you still interested in starting your podcast off?
I actually am. I've actually I started like some ideas. I was trying to collect stories from the other coaches at camp. I only got 2 stories, one from Wim and one from Canute. Preet just told me no. He's like, I don't have a story. He's like, no. And it was hilarious. But it made me think that I do just I wanna start a podcast. I have actually 6 episodes from 2020 in the pandemic that I recorded. I only released 1 that I'll probably be releasing as like Jiu-Jitsu en el tiempo de COVID-19, like kind of a little like mini series. And but then I want to do this, and especially as I've learned from you. I was on the Roll Radio podcast yesterday, and they were giving me some advice on how to start a podcast, and I'm very much inspired, and I like talking about jiu-jitsu, and I like picking the brains of interesting people, and through my travels, like I've met a host of interesting people that I would love to talk to, and I've had great conversations with them. They're just not recorded. Because I know that for most normal people, talking on the record, so to speak, can be a little nerve-wracking because they're worried they might say something wrong, might offend someone, they might get themselves canceled. And so, like, the conversation's not the same. But I think as long as we keep the topic mostly on jiu-jitsu and not on, petty squabbles and things that are going to get people in trouble, I think it can be a good thing. Because I've had just so many great conversations, even just in the past 2 months, that I think would have been gems of podcasts.
Yes. Well, I look forward to you releasing that, and I'll definitely advertise the shit out of it when
I'll probably join you. Like I'm gonna become one of your patrons, simply to just completely steal your way of doing things. I'm gonna look at your Patreon and just blatantly copy and paste your entire model, and then I'll have my own Patreon as well, and just do exactly what you're doing. And
This
hopefully,
this is free. This whole podcast is free. It's on Spotify and
ah,
Amazon and YouTube and Google and Apple. I just
beautiful.
yeah.
And so
I
the
paid.
Patreon thing is just if people want to have that extra access to you, to
Yeah. For extra,
yeah.
any ideas I just have come into my head that I'm still working through, I'll post on the Patreon and go, right, this is what I'm currently working on. I'm not going to make a big video out of it just yet, but this is stuff that I'm currently enjoying.
I still like that because as of right now, the only person who gets to hear that is Natasha, and she usually hears it at times that she'd rather not be hanging about jiu-jitsu. As I like wake up in a fever dream, hey Natasha, I think I've solved jiu-jitsu. What time is it? So
That's essentially what the Patreon is. But also, like, if anyone, so some people pay for like extra videos, like they send me questions, and I'll make them a video on that subject. And
I love that idea because I love the idea of customized instruction. Like I still view jiu-jitsu like a video game, and private lessons are me getting to like play as a different character. Like
Yeah.
I'm playing as a wizard. You're playing as a rogue. Let me try and help you on your journey. Like I love it. I love
some
it.
nerd shit right there, dude.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing a fucking Gundam Wing anime shirt. Like or is this G Gundam? Which one do I have? This is the G Gundam shirt. This is not my Gundam Wing shirt. This is actually in my opinion very underrated anime. If you like the classic ones, very episodic. I enjoy, I am a nerd, but nerding out on things like it leads you to interesting places. It really
Yes.
does.
Yes. Well, I'll happily give you ideas for making a mediocre podcast when the time comes. Although to be fair, and it did catch me off guard. I was looking at like what kind of numbers are good for podcasts, and I found some sources online, and it said the numbers I'm currently getting per week would put me in the top 10% of all podcasts. I'm like, how the fuck did that happen?
Well, I think
Like-
it's partially because like Joe Rogan has been pushing the idea that everyone on Earth should have a podcast for about like a decade, right? And so I think that a lot of people are just like, yeah, podcast. But what makes a good podcast, I think, is what you're currently doing. It's consistency.
Yeah.
And so like the fact that even with how you started the show, right? Every single week there will be a podcast. If you have no guests, you and Naki will be cutting it up, and there will be a podcast. Come hell or high water, there will be a podcast. That, to me, is what makes it and why people will keep watching you. Whereas I think what will happen is a lot of people will do what I did, which is they'll record 6 podcasts or so, edit one, get frustrated editing the damn podcast, release the one, and then be like, you know what, fuck this. Or they'll do it for a week or a month and then just get tired. I think that the ability to be consistent outstrips talent, outstrips creativity. It's just the ability to keep taking that step forward and consistently, because each time, because of who you are, I know you're improving. I know that this podcast is better produced and better organized than the one you did a month ago. It has to be because of who you are.
I cannot wait because you say you hit on the head there of consistency. Like, I cannot wait for you to have guests, run out of guests, and just do the you and Natasha show.
Honestly, I think that I want to do that even before that, because Natasha and I bantering about jiu-jitsu, especially now, like I'm such like, it's so interesting because she's my girlfriend, but also like I have this coaching role. I'm so proud of Natasha. So I almost don't want to tell this story because it's her story to tell. So she actually like, I think you should have Natasha on, whether it's with me or without me, but she had, in my opinion, like her jiu-jitsu coming of age moment in that she had her own like epic, like, 5 or 10 people at a Globetrotters camp all wanted to roll at the same time. She rolled with all of them, like won their respect, and it had nothing at all to do with me. It was because of her and the reputation she's built for herself in coming to Globetrotters camps and her own jiu-jitsu. And I think that moment when you kind of shift from it being like, hey, Charles, oh, hey, Natasha, to, hey, Natasha, for like her skills in her own right is such, and she told me about it, I've never been happier. Like, I was so proud. And so, like, I think that I almost told the story. Hope they didn't ruin it. I think you should have Natasha on and have her tell that story. And she would love it because she's been on a couple other podcasts already, talking about being a traveling person in jiu-jitsu, woman in jiu-jitsu. I think she'd be a great interview because we've been talking a lot about kind of her redefining the role of what an uke is, because she's not just a body that I toss around. She's giving feedback to, like, here's how you drill this technique properly. Here's how the person receiving the technique can do better. Here's what I'm feeling. Whereas at most seminars, if you're lucky enough to be the uke, you get some secrets no one else does, because you cannot talk about and see everything. So that extra perspective that at the end of each time I teach something, hey, Natasha, anything to add? That little segment to me is more and more what I'm getting feedback. People saying, like, that's so helpful. That's so special. And it's not something that you get in a lot of seminars when the coach is grabbing a random person off the side. Hey, let me choke you. You know?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, absolutely. I'll see when I can get her on, and we'll do the same. Unless you just do the Natasha and Charles show, which I'll just...
No, I think that we
I'll
will
post her
definitely do
episode.
that. But I know that she would love... Because I see the way that you guys get along entirely too well. And it's been this way since the very beginning. Like, I still remember our first road trip tour, the day before we left. The amount of shit-talking and like riding and like busting of my balls that occurred when you two came together was way too high. It was at a point, because individually, either you or Natasha, I can handle it. I can hold my own. I can swat back the ball busting, and I feel great. But when your powers combined like some sick fusion dance, that's when my soul starts breaking.
I know. It's glorious. I couldn't wait for Heidelberg just because I knew that would happen.
Hold on. Do you remember after we left the seminar at Garden State?
Yes.
When Natasha asked you to mess with me and you kept up a Cockney accent for 2 hours in the car? 2 hours of, whatever do you mean? We should make a left turn. 2 hours of Oliver Twist in the car. I thought I was going to die.
Nothing good ever happens in Jersey. Because then the last time we were in Jersey, we were in a place that was, well, due for demolition by the looks of things.
Have you told this story to your guests?
I'd say as the final thing we'll say on this podcast, just before, because we've been going for an hour
clear,
and a half.
not the gym. The gym we went to was fabulous in Jersey last time. This was a hotel we stayed at.
So okay. This would be this. You requested stories of the black belts, and you wanted funny, weird jiu-jitsu stories. We were traveling, touring amongst loads of different gyms across the states. We've been to Colorado, Pennsylvania. We're going down to Georgia. We were going all over the place, and we were in Philly, and we needed a place to stay near the gym we were at. I can see your face. We needed a place to stay near the gym we were at in near Jersey City, wasn't it?
Yep.
That kind of area.
Yeah.
And so I quickly found somewhere on
Booking.com. This is clear. Mind you, for the entire trip previously, these types of decisions were taken care of by me, the local. But I was like, Chris is a grown man. I can trust him, because we were eating breakfast. And you were like, Charles, you want me to handle it? And I said, okay. Not realizing that you didn't understand the rating systems of hotels in America. And you chose a hotel that was a 6 out of 10 on its ratings.
In the UK, that's a passable, probable travel lodge. That's somewhere, we have standards.
It's a 6 out of 10 in school. It's a failing grade.
In the UK, that would be a very passable hotel. That would be like a Premier Inn or something like that. Something that, it's not going to be like a Hilton or something. It's like, oh, we could stay here. It'd be okay. We're only here for a night, just as we travel through. But no. So we get to our hotel in Jersey, and it has signs all over it saying this structure is not suitable for human habitation.
But just on the first floor, it's due to structural insufficiency. no one is allowed to be here, and it's all blocked off with like police tape.
Part of it had crumbled to the ground. Part of the upper floors had crumbled. The first floor and second floor had crumbled into the car park. So we get to our room. It smelled like
on
dead.
The third floor, mind you. They book us on a third floor. So this is the amazing thing, is that the first and second floors are not structurally sound, but somehow the floor which sits upon them is okay. That's fine.
So we go in that first room. We took 2 rooms, didn't we? The first room,
Yes.
it smelled like someone had died in there.
It sounded like
so
a murder happened.
We can't sleep in this room. It smells godless. And so we went and got a second room, and that room didn't smell that good either. There was blood all over the microwave. Like, it just looked like someone had blown a heart up in the microwave. The water in the tap came out sideways and hit like
and brown.
There was just some old used boxes on top of the ironing board on the side of the room. And you're there, and I'm pretty sure at this point I've like chained the door because I'm thinking someone's gonna come past. We're gonna see a body get dragged past on this walkway, and I've seen Dexter. There's someone getting like cut up in a room 2 doors down. And I thought, well, we're next. So yeah, I locked the door, and all I could hear was you on the phone to Natasha, just describing this hellhole, and me just laughing hysterically.
Well, because it was all you're doing. Because like I should have known. So now going forward, you never get a room that is less than 7 or 8 out of 10, and you look at pictures and you read the reviews. I understand that in the UK, a 6 out of 10 means that like there's a few pieces of dust, and you guys cannot be tolerated that they didn't dust the room. In the US, a 6 out of 10 is what you experienced. Now what you have to realize is that there are hotels that are 4 out of 10, Chris.
Dude, we were in the Overlook. Like, I'm pretty sure it's like an elevator could have opened and blood just splashed out everywhere. We were in the Overlook Hotel, New Jersey. And the thing is, I remember telling you a previous story about when I was coming back home from Heidelberg camp.
Oh yeah. I should have known that you told me that story not to trust you to choose our hotel. Please tell this story.
So I accidentally fucked up my flights, and I was flying back the day after the camp finished. I had to get an extra night in Frankfurt, and so I thought, I'm going to stay at just a cheap hostel for the night. I don't need anything special because I'm going to be mostly in Frankfurt. So I find a cheap hostel, and it comes up with €5 for a night. I'm like, €5 for a night? This is amazing. So I go spend a night in this €5 hostel. I get there, and it's very, very basic. And they're like, oh, come in. Like, the blankets are on your bed. There's soup that's going to be served at 6. I'm like, oh, I get dinner as well in this hostel. I've paid €5. I get a bed for the night, and I get soup. And it's not until I put my bags down and I come down for food that I realise that I'm in a homeless shelter.
You're in a soup kitchen.
Oh.
Because I remember when I was talking to Natasha about this, she was just like, Charles, why would you let Chris do this? Like, he booked himself a homeless shelter last time. Like, why would you put him in charge of lodging?
It was a 6 out of 10.
Oh, man. Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
I can't wait for our next tour.
Actually, I'm very interested because I have decided to stay in the U.S. at least mostly for the rest of this year. So if you come to the U.S., I will be here, and we can set something up. I've booked myself pretty crazy for the next few weeks through the Midwest. But after that, I have a few spots I have to organize from like Tennessee to Portland and a few other spots. So I'm gonna be getting around. Most of them will be with Natasha, but she's been diving back into her massage practice here in town. So
and you need surrogate Natasha.
Yes, only. No, I don't need surrogate Natasha. Let's not put it that way. It's not like that at all. It's actually what I really want to do. That's not to be talked about on recorded air. Private conversation.
You needed a warm cuddle that night.
As long as I'm the big spoon, I'm okay with this. That's how this works. Does not matter that you're a larger human than me. I am still the outer spoon.
What happens in North Carolina?
Oh man.
So
I had something to say, but you just threw me for a loop. I've lost it entirely. Actually, Natasha's interested in us finally doing our the tour with all the three of us. So
okay.
Versus you being a replacement, you will be an addition to the to the tour, and I will hopefully survive the two of you together for whatever amount of days it's going to be.
Well, I'm so glad we've managed to do this, and I cannot wait for the breaking of Charles Harriott tour.
Oh Lord! Whenever I get my podcast, I will have you on as well, and I'm excited, man. It's a kind of a cool time. I'm seeing like a lot of things kind of blossoming right now. Like I'm seeing the light of kind of where I want to go with this whole. I mean, I've been doing it for years now, but it's one of those things where it's all kind of coming together. The website has my tour on there. I'm organized. I know where the hell I'm going to be. I'm no longer just like, I'm going to get on a random bus and hope they want jiu-jitsu. Like those, though I still occasionally will do that for fun, it's not my entire life. So Gainesville, Florida is home.
I'll make sure so anyone who's listening to this if you go look at the YouTube video, I know it will definitely be on there. I'll stick on all of Charles's links, or you can just find Charles via Charles Harriott on Instagram.
Or charlesharriott.com. It's very easy.
Yes, charlesharriott.com.
Right there. Very easy to find. I own my online real estate. Yes.
But I'll make sure it's all linked. Don't you worry. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
What time is it? It's 1 a.m. for me, so it must be...
Oh, nice. It's 8 p.m. It's about to be dinner time for me.
Oh, lovely. I'm going to go black out. Thank you for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and
it's always
I'm sure
fun,
I can't wait to see you again. I miss you, dude.
All right. Peace.
Good night, sir.
Good night.